Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Ephrata Community Church weekly podcast, a conversation with our pastors and leaders meant to continue encouraging you to know God, know freedom, know purpose, and make a difference.
Hey Ephrata Community Church, man, what a fun day today is. I am with Bonita Keener. Bonita shared this last weekend as at ECC, and it was on the topic that is involved in our series on You Asked Him. Remember, every single year we do a series called You Asked For It, and we get a lot of creative questions. This year, because we're studying through the Gospels, we decided to be like something Jesus talked about, said, or did. We got a bunch of responses back. I think we had over 85 responses back.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of them had to do with prayer, and we thought, hey, who better than Bonita Keener? Bonita, thanks for being a part of it. Was it a good weekend?
Loved it. Thank
too.
you so much.
So many loved it. You don't have to thank us, man. You're like a given. Matter of fact, haven't we asked you a bunch of times? Aren't you hard to... Yes, come on, girl. You're hard
Last year, but then I was out for surgery.
Oh, that's right.
That's why.
You feeling good?
Yeah.
Good. Praise Jesus for that. Hey, everything was wonderful over the weekend. I do want to pause though before we dive into the topic, which is wonderful, and talk a little bit about the Gateway House of Prayer. I don't ever want to assume that our viewership knows the heart, vision, what God does there more oftentimes than not. And so you want to share a little bit, just remind us the beauty of what God's up to.
Yeah. We're so excited about Gateway. It has been running this year 15 years, 24/7. So just amazing. That'll be November of this year. 18 years since it began in 2005, and our entire goal is to honor Jesus 24/7, night and day. And it's amazing that we have almost 40, I counted today, I think we're at 39 different churches that represent our watch leaders that take 2-hour blocks of time around the clock.
Yeah, in case you're ever wondering how it works, it's 2-hour blocks. And I'm always impressed with those who take the night watch.
Yeah.
Some of them,
so dedicated.
Just amazing.
Some of them from the beginning.
Yeah. Now, under your leadership, if I remember correctly as well, you also have taken the 7 spheres of society. Just so you know, just to remind you, we think there are 7 spheres of society that you run into every day of your life: law and government, business, economics, family, religious nonprofit stuff, the arts, media, education. We think that you can't wake up and live your day without running into these 7. Therefore, we think God cares about them.
Yes.
They're involved in every culture we know of around the world. Therefore, we know that they're universal. And so we're like part of bringing the kingdom is seeing those areas discipled.
Yes.
You have focused on different ones of those spheres on different nights of the week.
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, we love it. We have people that really care about those spheres leading them. Many of them are in those spheres, which gives them authority to lead groups. It's all corporate worship and intercession. So, Monday night is the family watch. So you could bring your family. They focus on marriages and family. And then Tuesday is the Church or Religion Mountain, where we're equipping believers to take the message of the gospel.
And on that night, you often times have different leaders of different faith communities coming in to lead that particular. That's great.
And we love that diversity.
It's one of my favorite equipping services. I think it's been called in the past as well.
Yes, absolutely, still is. So then Wednesday night is the Education Watch, and as of just like the start of September, we're focusing each week on a different age group. So it'll be elementary to middle to high school to college, each one of the nights of the month, each Wednesday. And then Thursday morning is the Business Watch, bright and early, 4 to 6 a.m. Come on out. And then Thursday night is the Government Watch, and Friday night is Arts and Media. So
incredible. By the way, they're all open for anyone who would want to be a part of it, right? So we just encourage you, if you want to explore what it means to actually get involved in at least 2 hours of focused prayer over one of those spheres, come and join. Now, that also doesn't mean that the Gateway House of Prayer is also open at pretty much throughout the day. So if you ever want to come in and just simply sit and join in the prayer and the worship that's taking place, you are more than welcome to do that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm thrilled about the 35 plus churches that are involved. As you can imagine, there is a blessing on unity. And I want to commend the elders of Ephrata Community Church for being so releasing with this as well. Although they make sure that it's facilitated in so many ways, it's ultimately for the region and not for any one church. So that is
All
good stuff.
gathered around the name of Jesus.
That's right.
We can do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that it has experienced growth, and this is to make sure you're honored in this, is you are such a trusted intercessor before you ever became the director. You've been involved since it started, man. 15 years plus. It's been
18.
It's been 18 for its running.
18.
It's 15 years since 24/7, right? You are just a trusted figure. In other words, I say this about Kevin sometimes too. He's one of the rare charismatic evangelicals that can walk into any of the streams of the churches and be honored because of just the character he carries. You're very similar, and I think part of his success is because of who you are. Thank you for bringing your gift.
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer when it came to the topic of prayer to invite Bonita. I must admit, I was sitting, I think I was even telling Rachel, I wonder where Bonita's going to go, because you are gifted enough and you're deep enough into the this particular discipline and also this art of prayer that I'm like, man, she could go anywhere. And so when you did the Lord's Prayer, I was like, oh, but then all of a sudden it was like, no, that's probably exactly where I want Bonita to start, is to take the most foundational prayer given to us by the Lord himself on how to approach the Godhead, right? And just to unpack it. So first of all, thanks for taking the foundational and show us the depth of it. That was just beautiful. What went into your thinking? Were you tempted to go in the other direction, or did you know right away?
That was the direction. Yeah. The difficulty was that there was so much to cover in a short amount of time, so I could have just taken part of it, honestly. But I went for the whole thing.
You did, and I loved it. I'll have to tell you the part that stood out to me was, I mean, you announced that it's your favorite part, and maybe for me it is too. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, right? Well, and you know, maybe because I'm a pastor of advancement who's always thinking about what's it mean to bring the kingdom of God to bear here. Not just to deal with depravity in the world, etc. I mean, there's so many, not just to care for brokenness in the world, but to see the kingdom come in its fullness. I sit and think about all the time, and just what our role is in joining with God in that. You know, I love that your kingdom come, thy will be done. But yet there's such a proactive part of us. The way you talked about it was ushering in or welcoming in the will of God. It's almost as if we become a little bit of a mini gatekeeper that He is willing to bring it, but behold, I look for someone to stand in the gap. I found none. But I just was reminded again in your teaching, like, man, I am welcoming in the will of God into situations. And
Amen.
Just want to say,
so good.
Just want to say that part spoke to me, and appreciate it. Tons.
That's my favorite part. Absolutely.
Well,
and all the seven mountains. You just talked about the seven spheres of society. So imagine that happening in every sphere. It shifts what those spheres look like. Yeah,
and in some level, it reminds us that there are unrealized dreams of God over every of the spheres. You know, I sit and think sometimes. I think of, for instance, George Washington Carver, who, you know, here's a guy who's watching the economy of the South tank after the Civil War. He actually, in his journal, says he was worried about another Civil War because the economics of the South was dipping, and the South was blaming the North for why its economic was dipping. And he felt, to stop the potential of a second war, that he asked God for insights into the peanut, because it was the impervious crop of the South. Cotton could fail, it was fickle, but he knew the peanut was impervious. So in his journals, it actually says he asked God to unlock, quote, to unlock the mysteries of the peanut. And he had 112 patents, I think it was, within 3 years. And I'm like, hold a second. So that means there were the mysteries of the peanut hanging out there that God was willing to unlock for someone. But because a man stepped in because he was trying to bring God's kingdom in a way of actually stopping something negative from happening, what he was concerned about. And God honored it and opened up his mind. And he claims that he'd be awakened with an idea and to turn it into something. So I think that's what I get. I was reminded walking out, like, man, there are those mysteries that God's willing to make unmysteries all over the place. And we believe for that in these different spheres.
And He wants us to dream with Him. That's amazing. It's the God of the universe wanting us to dream with Him. So obviously He's the one dropping all of those ideas, but He wants us to wait for Him, to listen for Him, to give us new ideas, insights, strategies. Yeah.
No, and so thank you for making us, it was a great reminder of that, and also making it something that's felt doable. It's the other thing about your teaching. It didn't feel like I was just being inspired by someone who is gifted in something. It was like I was being invited into those steps of just taking one step, moving towards something. Really loved it. But here's one of my favorite questions.
Okay.
If you could have spent more time on any one thing, because you know how it is when you're up there sharing, even you already said it.
Yeah.
You could have taken one section, just blown it up really big. What do you think what do you wish you would have had more time for?
I love the let your kingdom come, but I think the point God was really wanting to make was about his name on us in those spheres. And I think it's what he's saying to ECC right now, and actually to believers, to carry his name well. So it's one thing we focused on him as the God of love, a father to us, but then he's also holy. And that holiness on us, I think this was the first time it hit me so hard, diving into this some more, and then recognizing what's been said of ECC as a place and us as people carrying his presence, carrying his name well. I felt the fear of the Lord in that.
Yeah.
I felt the fear of the Lord around carrying him well.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I probably would have gone there a little bit further. I think Kevin will talk about this in the weeks ahead.
He doesn't mind us talking, though. I was chatting with him about this morning, because I was like, Kevin, how did you feel that my message came up last week, and it was a bit more spontaneous because we had to do some reshuffling. And here I am up there kind of giving a hint that we've been given some words recently about God doing, I say 4 things. One, saying, I'll put my name on you.
Right.
Secondly, I'll show you my face.
Yes.
Thirdly, my glory will be there, right? And I'm coming to your house.
Yes.
Very specifically, the last one, I'm coming to your house. The person who received that, which is an incredibly trusted prophetic intercessor in our midst, felt that the emphasis was on the word immediately. When Jesus looks at Zacchaeus and says, I'm coming to your house today. And the Greek tense there is, I'm coming now, right? And so that's one of the reasons why even last week I was just starting to prime the pump of saying, hey, as I've had the privilege of hearing some of these words coming toward us, believing that there might be some immediate, let's start to talk about what happens when the weight of glory of God starts to show up, etc. You're sitting and going now like, oh yeah, I sense that too as I was prepping that. We're preparing a soil for something, right?
Absolutely.
And I do want to say this, that there's a phrase that floats around, or at least is used a lot when we talk about Gateway, that Gateway has helped to raise the water table here, so that the smallest amount of rain, we have a little more overflow and a little more flooding in a positive way.
Yes.
Because 24/7 prayer, let's face the facts, even though it's for the whole regional church, we get to live in one of the immediate byproducts is a very high water table, a spiritual water table. And so I also want to say that I am pretty pumped that when the Lord says, I'm coming to you, the ground's prepared, right?
Yes.
Now it's a matter of, Lord, when? And is there anything we can do? Or is it just simply sitting and waiting? It's a fun thing to be wrestling with at the moment.
Yeah, agreeing with him
That's right.
when he wants to come.
That's right.
Being in step with him.
And what do you think we should do? Because my thing is, do we just all of a sudden pivot all prayer services to worship until he completely manifests or something? That would be one fun thing. Another would be to go and just start serving like mad. What do you think the next steps are as we wait on his presence or these promises we have?
Yeah.
Come on, give me your opinion.
Yeah. He is coming in increase right now.
He is.
So I think we're actually doing what we're supposed to do right now. And a lot of it has to do with worship. Like focusing on him and not ourselves. And sometimes worship, it's crazy how it can get a little twisted and you're all of a sudden thinking about how he's coming to you versus actually lifting him higher and seeing him And I think the more that we do that and are lifting him up, the more he's coming. He will be enthroned on our praises.
That's right.
He says it. It's a
That's
promise. So as we're doing that, I felt that Sunday.
Oh no,
Ah,
it was.
He was coming in our midst.
I think he was. If you were here and part of it, you could sense that there was a little bit of the veil pulled back in the sense of just the presence of God, particularly as we were concentrating on His holiness.
Right.
You know, His something was in the room. Now, I have to say also there was something about the songs that we were a part of together. They were all we songs. I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but there was not as many I songs in it.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking I in the sense of self-referencing, but it could still be a worship song to God, but it's I worshiping. The songs were more like we enthrone you.
I agree.
And something happens when the community is joining in the we portion.
Which is the same as the Lord's Prayer, because it's corporate, our Father.
Oh yeah.
It's not my Father,
Right.
it's our. And so when we're doing that in worship and then praying prayers together like that, I think He comes. He can't wait to be with His people.
Yeah, so it's something too that will remind you. And by the way, I always want to be mindful that the charismatic stream of the church could be critiqued for always having something in the future it's waiting for, right? It just could be. It's a fair thing, right? But maybe hear from us that we don't do that all the time. It's pretty rare that we sit and start to say, "Hey, there's a cloud on the horizon the size of a fist, and there's something that's moving toward us." But there is not just a growing confidence. We're starting to talk about it, and therefore we're doing it with a level of confidence because we wouldn't be doing it. We're not a sensationalist church that needs something sensational to make sense of itself and to do the next thing.
Right.
We try to be a faithful receiver of when the Lord is doing something, ministering that in the moment. But when we feel the Lord saying something to us in the future, hey, I'm coming to your house, and I'm going to put my name on it, or I'm going to bring my glory to bear on it and stuff. We have to say yes, and Lord, let it be, right? Speak, your servants are listening. So we ask you to be praying for us as we continue into this. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. We're highlighting that worship, and of course, taking time to make sure that prayer is at the outset of this is pretty critical.
Yes.
Yeah, any closing words for you? Anything you want to share with us as we're heading out?
Yeah.
Don't be shy, don't be bashful.
I say, come to Gateway.
That's right.
I think God is doing something unique in this season. I just, a business leader was in the house of prayer yesterday and said, thank you for what you said about dreaming with God. I was here for 2 hours today and I got my own blueprints for my business.
Yeah.
I think that's the time we're coming into. He's showing up more than just in worship. He wants to speak to us personally and corporately and give us strategies, ideas like we were talking about earlier. And it's getting very personal. You know, it's personal for whatever you're facing, whatever business you're a part of, whatever school you're involved with. But He wants to come to us corporately. So, you know, the blueprints he got for his business was he was seeing things for his coworkers, and he was seeing things for his staff, so it gives expectation and faith.
Yeah, and it gets back to this: it's saturated. The place is saturated. I'm not always a big fan of saying that there's literally real estate of which the Lord's presence is more on. That makes me nervous, since the core of our theology is that He lives in our hearts. But I will say this. There is something about a place that's been consecrated and set apart, and then it's literally saturated, and that's why I think someone can come like that, and in 2 hours be able to sit, because they're giving themselves over to something that was a corporate thing that was put out over the weekend, and in a sense it's a response. So it's a really beautiful thing that Bonita's sitting here extending that response even again to say, hey. Maybe Gateway is a place you ought to go find some time and be able to sit in. Now, an easy first steps is to be a part of the Tuesday nights. They feel more like a traditional understanding of people gathered around the intentionality of pursuing the presence of God. May feel a little bit more like something you're familiar with than maybe going and sitting alone there, although, of course, that's an incredibly powerful way to do it. So we encourage you. The Tuesday night equipping service is a great thing to check out. What time does that begin on the
7 o'clock
That's right.
on Tuesday night. So come on out. It's a great time. Just, even in those nights, we're waiting on the Lord, just hosting His presence, and love that we're including artists right now,
That's right.
painting from the front, dancers. God is taking us into new territory in some of these places. So
That's right.
welcoming the beauty of who He is into our midst.
That's
so.
right. First Tuesday nights of the month is hosted by Ephrata Community Church.
Yes.
Different communities host different nights. So we do encourage you, if you want to check it out, now's a great time to dive in that first
Yes.
Tuesday night of October,
Yeah.
and you'll be
Next week
Yep,
is the
it'll
first.
be part of your tribe if you're
Mhm.
tuning into this. So all that to say, we deeply appreciate it.
Yeah.
We need to thank you for spending time with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you for bringing your gift of who you are.
Thank you, Jim.
Makes
so
me happy.
good to be here.
All right, this coming weekend is a baptism weekend at
Yes.
Ephrata Community Church. So get ready to join in the celebration of
Mhm.
life being announced
Mhm.
as people have given their life to Jesus and now want to make it public in front of others. We encourage you to take part in that. All right, hey, we appreciate you. Have a great week.
Goodbye.
Hey, thanks again for joining us today. We hope that you've been encouraged by listening. You can listen to previous episodes, find additional resources, and of course, learn more about us at EphrataCommunityChurch.com.